And joining us now to discuss the Trump administration easing auto tariffs is Lauren Fix, automotive expert with Car Coach Reports. Good morning, Lauren. How are you doing today?
Good, Don. Thanks for having me back. I'm good.
Okay, so how significant do you think is this executive order in terms of easing the burden on U.S. automakers?
Well, I think it adds up over time. It is really confusing for the average person to read this policy. I have read it a few times myself, and I happened to be at an automotive event where we had a pretty hefty discussion about it because there's a lot of confusion. So initially, there's a 25% tariff, and that's also on aluminum and steel, which was what vehicles are made of for the most part. So the thing is, they were afraid of a layering. In other words, you're paying the 25% on the aluminum and the steel that's not from North America. But then in addition to that, there would be a 25% tariff on vehicles built out of the country. So what this does is eases that. There's no stacking. And I think that's the first thing to know. So in other words, you're not getting double tariffed. And by the way, there's billions of dollars already been taken. I think 150 plus billion dollars in tariffs. So that's a lot of money that will help ease some of our debt. But on top of that, what we're finding interesting is this 25% tariff on auto parts will remain. So what they're doing is year one, starting April 3rd, so it's going to be retroactive. If a car, let me just give you an example to make it easier to understand, because it took us a while too. If a car's sticker price is $40,000 and they can import that in with the 3.75% on that 40,000 without paying the 25% extra percent tax, they'd pay about $1,500 less per car. Now you may think, oh, that's not a lot of money. It is when you're selling 10,000 cars. Do the math. It adds up quite quickly. So when you start looking from that, then year two, that will reduce down to 2.5%, which is $1,000 on a $40,000 car. And year three, that completely disappears. But there's more to this because you've got auto parts coming in. For example, a car is being final assembled in Birmingham, Alabama. It's a Mercedes-Benz. The driveline comes from Europe. They'll be tariffed on the cost of that part coming in, which is 25%. And that is based on the cost of the motor. But when the first part of this is where it gets confusing is because it was off the list price. In other words, the price that's on the sticker. So we all ask, so what happens if there's a discount? You go to the dealer, you negotiate a discount. Well, that money's going to be paid up front. But what's interesting on the backside of this, car manufacturers that made electric vehicles took a loss. Every single brand, I don't care what brand, even Tesla took a loss. He made up the difference by selling carbon credits to car manufacturers, which is now going away. So when you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, if I take a loss in every car, how do I make that up? Well, we've discussed this before, subscription fees, increasing the price of the vehicle, making the average cost of a car go up. And there are a couple of vehicles that have gone up between $10,000 and $20,000, but there's no changes to the vehicle. Then they offer some new colors. To consumers, that doesn't mean anything. That just means cars got more expensive. So this is a way to offset this. The result of this will be not just bringing production back to the US, but they will have to build less electric vehicles that don't make money. And that mandate, we'll be talking probably again this week, is up for vote in the Senate and in the House to remove the California Air Resources Board mandate. And that will actually help car manufacturers. And they won't be forced to produce product they take a loss on. So they'll be able to absorb some of these tariffs. I know it's complicated. I tried to explain it as best as possible, but you have to understand there's a lot going on behind the scenes and a lot of impacts. And I'm just giving you the high level version.
Yeah, Lauren, I was reading about this too. It is a little bit complicated. But the bottom line is talk to us about what it means for consumers.
So for consumers, the average cost of an electric car is about $47,000 right now. I think what you're going to see is some incentives. They're going to try and get people to buy the vehicles that are sitting on the lots that are definitely not tariffed. Once those vehicles are gone, which predictions are around the end of May, early June, that's when all those 3 million cars that have been sitting around that didn't sell because sales were off, people are going to start thinking, you know what, I do need a car or my lease is due. I'm going to do that now because the cars that are landed or that are in port or coming from Europe now or anywhere, China, or that might be, well, China's a whole different, totally different conversation, but because there's just going to be a higher tariff across the board. But all the components that are coming in, you're going to see higher priced vehicles. And it could go anywhere between 3,000. They could absorb it all. You could hear like Ferrari, prices are going up 10%. That's not going to impact their sales at all. And Porsche's going up 7%. Again, people that are buying Porsches, they don't care. And so when you start looking at the full package, the full impact to consumers, you'll probably see some vehicles go up in price. Many manufacturers like Hyundai has said they're going to absorb the pricing until June. Ford is starting to bring more production back to the US versus Mexico and Canada. But the whole goal in all this, which is interesting, is to bring Canada and Mexico back to the table for USMCA. It was not a great deal, but Canada was forced into this deal as well as Mexico. And now it's time to renegotiate, which it was supposed to be renegotiated in 2026. But I think we're going to get to that a lot earlier. It was getting reviewed in 2025. And the interesting thought about all of this is this could help lower the cost of vehicles for consumers down the road. So initially, if you need a car, there's some deals, there'll be some incentives. You're going to see a major slowdown in auto sales. That's coming if they try to pass these tariffs along to consumers. People are not going to spend more money on vehicles when everything costs more as it is. As everything comes down in price, gasoline, energy, everything that President Trump is working on, then you're going to see cars come down as well because overall costs will come down. And when that happens, cars will become more affordable. Does that happen overnight? No, that's going to take some time. But I think we'll have a little bit of pain up front. If you need a car, get one as soon as possible.
But another point that the administration is making is that they want manufacturing back into the U.S. Do you think the administration is being realistic, though, about how quickly automakers can reorientate their supply chains domestically?
The soonest they can probably do it is somewhere between 3 and 6 months, depending upon the parts. If it's changing tires, instead of buying a Chinese tire to put on a car or a tire that's made in another country, they can have tires that are made right here in the USA. Michelin builds tires here, BF Goodrich, Bridgestone, they all build tires right here in North America. That's an easy thing to swap. And that's what President Trump was discussing in your earlier part of your interview with your host. And I think that this is something that people don't realize. A lot of these things can just be purchased from another supplier. There are obviously purchase orders in place and contracts when those could be transferred to the US. So I think getting a lot of it done quickly is not possible. Some things can be changed, other components, which is why we're having this 3.75% sort of discount on the tariff, if you want to call that, because those parts are certain parts that can't be produced here, or they're stuck in a purchase order or somewhere already in the pipeline. So I think what you're going to see is more production coming here. You're going to see more jobs coming here. I have quite a few friends that work that have manufacturing companies that are getting a lot of calls from companies they lost business to that went to Mexico or China or Thailand or Vietnam because it was cheaper to build there. Well, now it's going to be cheaper to build here. And so that will definitely help bolster our economy as a whole.
Well, okay, Lauren, we're out of time for today. But again, thank you very much for coming on. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our car review channel, Car Smarts. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want even more content, check out the links in the description. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.